because there is itching, because there is scaling, because there is rash, because it runs in the family. In 5 to 7 years, there is major shift in understanding the etiology of eczema, in understanding the nature of disease, in understanding the primary cause of eczema, in understanding the genes that cause the eczema. Now, what is the reason that there is some kids born with the eczema, whereas others normal? There is some individual develop eczema, whereas the other is normal. The answer is always genes problems. Genes problem, it means that there is some sort of mutation of the gene, or there is some sort of defect of the gene, or there is missing gene. But the question is that which gene? Which gene that you are talking about? Whether there is defect or there is mutation. The answer of this question before 2006 unknown. The scientists, they knew that it's genetic problem, but the exact gene they could not identify. Another problem, what is the primary cause of eczema? In the past, we believed that the primary cause of eczema is immune system. Because of dysfunction of immune system, because of overreaction of immune system, it means that when he or she exposure to allergens, the immune system overreacts. And this overreaction, it leads to inflammatory process that what we have seen in the skin. Whereas in a normal person, the immune system normally acts. Now, let us get more closer. The allergens, or the chemical whatsoever, it got inside the body, triggers the immune system to overreact. The most important question that makes a major shift in trying to understand exactly etiology and primary cause of eczema, how is this allergen got inside the body? We know that there is production everywhere, anywhere in the body. How the allergen pass through the most powerful security system and got inside the body? That is the question. It is not a problem with the immune system. It is not a problem with dysfunction of the immune system. So instead of blaming the immune system, why not you go and blame the security guys, those that are sitting in front, and allow this allergen to go inside the body? Now, in here, we're trying to figure out why the allergen got inside the body. There are different ways through which the allergen can enter the body, either through the GIT, or through respiratory, or through the skin. Could be through the GIT, could be through the respiratory, but either GIT or respiratory, it will not explain the dryness of skins, because the patient with the eczema, his skin is always dry, and therefore they have found that the major problems that allow the allergen to go inside is the problem of the skin itself, problem with dysfunction of the skin barriers. So the major shift in the past, we blame the immune system, that is the cause of eczema. But right now, we find that it's the security system of the body. The skin barrier is responsible for eczema. So in order to know that, first we need to know the abnormal, we need to know what's normal. Skin, as we know, is the largest organ of the body. It composed of the 3 layers: epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. Eczema is a problem of the epidermis. Epidermis itself is composed of 5 layers. The topmost layer is called stradium corneum. The second layer is known as stradium lucidium. The third layer is called stradium granulosum. And the fourth layer is stradium spinosum. And last is stradium passivum. Eczema is a problem with the stradium corneums. So out of the skin, eczema is a problem of the epidermis. In epidermis, eczema is a problem of the topmost layer, stradium corneums. Now, stradium corneum itself is composed of dead cells. And these cells fully occupied with specialized protein they call keratin inside those cells to make those cells more tough and more strong. A part of that, there is a specialized protein attached those cells to each other. And therefore, you'll find there is cell-to-cell connections. And eventually, it will form very, very strong barriers. They call it skin barriers. And the main function of skin barriers to protect the underlying structure from bacteria, from virus, from fungal, from allergens. That is the main function of skin barriers. For 2006, the scientists knew that the problem with eczema is a genetic problem, but they could not identify the exact gene that behind the eczema. In March 2006, the most brilliant scientist from Dente University, Professor McLean and his team, finally they came to know the exact gene that behind the problem of eczema. Finally, they came to know the location of this gene. They came to know the mechanism of these genes. And this gene is known as flagrins. So flagrins is the gene that's behind the story of atopic dermatitis. Flagrin is the one that is causing the problem of the eczematic patients. So what is flagrins? They have found that flagrin gene is located in human chromosome. They call it IQ21. These chromosomes is house of collection of various genes, including flagrins. Apart from that, this chromosome it contains human epidermal differential complex that involve in constructions and maturation of the epidermis. The most important function of flagrins genes is coded most important protein, and this protein is known as flagrins protein itself. Flagrins proteins is mostly expressed in the epidermis. The most important of flagrins proteins is involved in formation of very much important factor in the stratum corneum. And this factor is called natural moisturizing factors. So the flagrin genes encoded most important epidermal proteins, they call it flagrins, and the flagrins proteins involve in formations of natural moisturizing factors. It has three functions. First of all, it regulates the water within stratum corneus. The third, it holds the water inside. And that is why your skin is hydrated. It prevents the water loss. It will not allow the water to leak out. And even if the water leaks out, it has the ability to restore back the waters. And the third function of these factors that found in stratum corneum is support the skin's barrier. It makes skin barrier more tough and more strong. Now, the most important is the mutation of these factors. A child who born with eczema, they have found that there is some mutation of flagrin gene. When there is mutation of flagrin genes, there would be deficiency of flagrin proteins. And the most important flagrin protein, as we have seen, it is involved in formations of the factors that regulate the water inside the skin. Because of deficiency of flagrin protein due to defect of flagrin genes, you will find that the skin is no more hold the waters. As a result, the skin starts losing the waters due to deficiency of flagrin proteins. And that is the reason why your patient complains of dryness. Because the factor right now, because of deficiency of flagrin gene, has no ability to hold the waters. As soon as the skin loses the waters, the cells in the stratum corneum that form the skin's barrier start to shrink. When it shrinks, the breach between the two cells now is open up, through which the allergen now get inside the body. So the problem that is right from the beginning, there is deficiency of flagrin protein. It causes destruction of the factors that regulate the waters. With the result, the cells inside the stratum corneum shrinks. When it shrinks, there will be a gap between the cells, through which now the allergen can get inside the body, through which now the bacteria, the virus, the fungal can easily penetrate and goes inside the body. medically, there are two problems associated with flagrant mutations. In every person, there are two copies of flagrant gene. One from each family, one from each parent, one from father, one from mother. A child who born with a single gene mutations, he will develop in future atopic dermatitis. He will develop in future eczema. Whereas a child who born with the two gene mutations, he will develop in the future ectosis vulgaris. In case of eczema, you will find there is deficiency of flagrans protein, whereas in case of ectosis vulgaris, because it's a result due to mutation of two genes, you will find there is absence of flagrans proteins in the epidermis, and that is the reason that why a patient with ectosis vulgaris, you'll find the skin is extremely dry and gives appearance of fishing like scale. Now, we need to know that eczema is affected both male and female equally, and all ages, include the infant, include children, include adults. The mechanism still remains same, but the difference in distribution. The areas that involve in case of infants, different than the areas that involve in case of children. In adults, you will find that is the patch and the rash mostly. In infants, you will find that is the patch and rash mostly seen in the face, especially around the cheeks and the pre-oral area. A moment the infant starts to move, the exposed part, that including the extensor surface of the elbow, extensor surface of the knee, it will also involve. Child is very irritable and restless because of issues. Similar things in children, as we have seen in infant, is involved the extensor surface of the knee, extensor surface of the elbow, whereas in children it involves the flexor surface. In adults, most of them, the condition is more severe in compared to children, and it covers more part, and it causes non-stop itchiness. Now, we need to know that every patient, whether he's infant or children, it reacts different in the term of the onset, different in the term of the severity, different in the term of amelioration and aggravation. Since there is skin spiral dysfunctions, now the chance of bacteria and virus can easily penetrate inside the body. The most common virus that is like in the herpes simplex, that is the most common, and this condition is known as eczema herpeticum. And the most bacteria that is normally associated with atopic dermatitis, Staph aureus, and apart from that, the most common virus, DNA epoxyvirus, that is caused very tiny papules, very non-tenders. They call it Moroscum contagiosum. The diagnosis. As we have seen, the diagnosis is clinical. You'll find there is dryness, you'll find there is itchiness, scratching, scalings, and the areas that involve in children different than the areas that involve in adults. And apart from that is, as far as the lab, there is no specific test. The patch test is an allergic test, but it's not specific for atopic dermatitis. The IgE is always elevated, but it is not specific for eczema, because IgE is elevated in other forms, including bronchial asthma and other forms of allergy. But in future, right now, since discovering of flagrant genes, there might be, and 100% there will be specific genetic test, because if there is single mutations of flagrant gene, is diagnostic for atopic dermatitis. If there is double gene mutation, is diagnostic for ectosis vulgaris. Thank you very much.
Yes, Dr. Santhosh will continue.